Hello and welcome to the AgCulture Podcast, where we share insights about the future of agriculture. Each week, we dive into the stories, technologies, and ideas shaping a profitable and sustainable future for farms and rural communities alike. I'm Paul Windemuller, host of the AgCulture Podcast, and today I am on the West Coast. That's right. I just took a recent road trip out to the Pacific Northwest of the United States, visiting farms over there. You'll be hearing a couple different episodes on this topic and this traveling that I did, but this is the first of those episodes. And today I'm talking with Bryan Leuthold and Kate Lott. Now, Bryan is a fifth generation dairy farmer in the Tillamook County area of Oregon, and Kate is a representative of the Tillamook County Creamery Association, better known as the Tillamook Creamery. So in this episode, we're going to dive into what it's like to farm in the Tillamook Valley, and also what's made the Tillamook Creamery such a successful business in being kind of an isolated area of the United States for the dairy industry. So hopefully you geek out on this area of the country as much as I do. I really enjoyed being there, seeing this firsthand, and checking this item off my bucket list, this area of the United States in the dairy industry. So with that, let's get to today's episode with Bryan Leuthold and Kate Lott. All right, today we're here on site in the Tillamook, Oregon region on a dairy farm here. Bryan Leuthold.
Yep.
His family's farm, fifth generation here, a dairyman in the Tillamook area, with Kate Lott, who is the field rep for Tillamook, overseeing Bryan's farm for the creamery. And thank you for taking a few minutes to talk a little bit today about the co-op and the region. So let's start out, Kate, little history of the co-op. I know it's over 100 years old. It's kind of probably one of the most unique areas, unique dairy sheds in the country to some extent. So if you give us a little background on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Tillamook County Creamery Association was a cooperative started by farmers in 1909. But there was immigrants here, a lot of them from Switzerland, in the late 80s, 90s, clearing the land, deciding dairies, it was a good place to dairy. Really started the creamery and the co-op. There was still a lot of small creameries throughout the county, and a lot of places making cheese, but it's always really stood for quality. That was one of the main things that those guys kind of banded together and decided they wanted to make quality cheese. At some point in the history, they started stamping Tillamook on the rind of the cheese and selling it, up through Portland, down into California. And it really became known as, Tillamook cheese.
Yeah, which is now a nationally recognized brand, and you travel around the world, people even know the Tillamook brand.
Yeah, so in the last 5 or 6 years, we've, as a brand, decided we were going to go all the way east and not just win the West in terms of our Tillamook products, but really show the country what Tillamook cheese and later ice cream, that was kind of in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where ice cream started to be a product that we did. And so that's kind of where we're at now. How many places throughout the country can we sell cheese and ice cream, and really be known for both, across the country and some now globally. So dabbled in that, but a pretty, like you said, unique area of not that many dairymen here, not a very big geographical area, sandwiched between the Pacific Ocean and the coastal mountain range, but really a great place for grass and for cows. And so that's what most everyone who's left here, we're doing very heavy grass-based diet, a lot of brown cows, a lot of jerseys now for cheese yield. So
yeah, and it really exciting. Driving south of town to get here this morning, it really reminded me a lot of different places in New Zealand that I had the opportunity to go and see dairy farms. And it's probably the only place in the U.S. where it's really similar to that sort of climate and grass-based diet like that. So what region does this encompass or area does the membership farm in? What's that?
So members can be in 2 coastal counties. So Tillamook County and Clatsop County is to the north, up in Astoria. So we do have a couple members up there. We still have 2 members that are actually a little bit further east, closer to Portland. And that was a historical thing where they took their membership and went there, and we've allowed that, but we don't allow new members now to be outside of the coastal 2 counties.
Okay. And how many total members are in the co-op right now?
We have 60 farms.
60 farms. You've seen over, especially the last 20 years in the dairy industry, there's been a ton of consolidation. Farms the farm size is really, really ramping up. But you've seen some of that consolidation here on a farm level. You haven't seen many other players come into the market here in terms of processing. What makes this area unique that small farms can still be viable in this region?
Yeah, a lot of that is the brand and our ability to pay a price above, class 3 milk price to our members. So that's a benefit to them to be here, to be owners of the cooperative and participate on the board level of how the company's going to run. But I think it's also a unique area. Again, a lot of grass can be grown here. And so I think that helps some of the people either graze or harvest grass, a lot of tons of grass, basically.
Right.
So I think and Bryan can comment too a little bit on, I think just the uniqueness of a lot of people in a close space means, we can maybe a little bit economies of scale, but across multiple farms. And so maybe that's a little bit different than other places where small farms are trying to give it a go, but don't have such a community kind of built up around them to help support that and get a little bit of economy from that. Everybody, we're bringing alfalfa in all the time, right, from the east, but there's a little bit of economy of scale potentially by a couple people doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot different than say back in the Midwest, where you might have a dairy farm that is 300 cows or even 500 cows, but you have 2,000 acres of cropland where you can produce some of your own grains, you can produce your own hays, your corn silage, stuff like that. Here in the Northwest, especially Tillamook, there's a couple spots within Tillamook County where, up a little bit of a mountain rangey kind of an area where it gets a little hotter and it's a little drier climate. But for the most part, it's grass and corn that we grow here in Tillamook and just for feed. So we ship, we bring in all of our alfalfa from the outside. There are a couple guys that have a few acres that they experiment with or whatever, and they make some alfalfa haylage.
Okay.
And I've heard that does good. And as the seeds are getting better genetics also, we can maybe start to utilize that at a later date to produce maybe more alfalfa in Tillamook, and just depending on the needs, I guess.
Yeah. So as I drove through this morning, all I see is waterways. You see the ocean. You see signs for fishing everywhere. So with that, I think there's probably a lot of environmental regulation, environmental factors that really play into how farming is done in this region. Can you go a little bit into that?
Yeah, I think Oregon and this area for sure are unique on that. All of our dairies have to have a CAFO plan, so nutrient management plan, no matter the size, no matter if they're grazing cows, 10 months a year or not. But Tillamook dairymen, I think for decades have been very focused on the waterways and protecting that. Fishing, oysters, crabbing are very important to the local economy as well.
Yeah, in a lot of areas in the country, you've seen where the cropping farms or livestock farms really battle it out with the fisheries and stuff like Chesapeake Bay area. Most of the dairies have left that region, but that hasn't happened here. So what would you attribute that to?
I think it's been, again, a lot of hard work for our dairymen, but we've had a whole county-wide approach to, fencing all the waterways. And that's been going on for, 30, 40, 50 years, where there was a group of farmers that were also very focused on the soil and water, conservation districts. How do they all participate with the fish industry, tourism even? How do we make sure that we're doing it in partnership with everyone in the county? So a lot of fencing projects, riparian planting projects to really protect the waterways, both from sediment, from runoff, but also shading. A lot of salmon in this area. And so all of that's kind of been a great partnership really throughout, multiple industries, but making sure that the waterways are protected.
Yeah.
And we've now had scientific data that's, being collected in a lot of the rivers to show that even some contamination that may be happening in the rivers is E. coli from other species, not necessarily from cattle, which is always good for us to see that the work we've done is prevented that.
Yeah.
If it's elk and deer and geese
septic tanks
and septic tanks, I mean, that's different. And so those, we need to continue to work on water quality, but it's not coming from cows. And so that's a good story that I think we can continue to tell. And the creameries put a lot of focus, again, into fencing, trees, keeping the waterways cool and protected.
Yeah. And I think that's probably helped build the Tillamook brand. People realize that you guys exist here in conjunction with a pretty fragile environment on the fisheries side of things. And I think that's something that you guys deserve a lot of credit for, and that's probably helped spread the Tillamook brand.
Yeah, we tried to highlight our stewardship goals, our stakeholders, which obviously one is the environment, one is our communities, one is cows. And so that's where I come in to try to make sure we're helping farmers, we're taking care of cows, we're having thriving farms, but we're also looking after the ecosystem and the communities as well. So it's been really important for our brand and our growth, I think, like you said, across the country, and people, then start to know us for maybe more than just cheese.
Yeah.
The things that we're also doing that I think are important.
Yeah. Now going back to what we were mentioning before about, the farms around the rest of the country really consolidating and growing to get those economies of scale. They're really focused on their cost structure. Obviously, dairy farmers here are as well, but on top of the cost structure, obviously the farms are able to get a lot more value out of being part of this unique co-op. So where do you see that value playing out at a farm level, either one of you? What is that, I guess, Bryan, in your mind, what does that add to your milk check to have the brand behind it?
So.
We definitely have a payment structure above class 3. We also have a pretty good quality premium program. Yeah. So we pay our farmers based on low bacteria counts, low somatic cell counts. We also have some ability for them to have some payments based on how well the company's doing. So all of that helps them. And then I think the team that we've built in farm services for our members to do a lot of help consulting. We have a very highly regarded laboratory. We do a lot of sampling, not only for our final product, but cows, culturing for mastitis, et cetera. So we do a lot of kind of in-house support for them because, again, it's an isolated area of the country without a lot of potentially resources from outside. And so we're trying to do everything we can, I guess, in-house here with the co-op. We have a farm store that, sells a lot of the things that we need, try to, again, buy that stuff in, get economies of scale on a lot of those things. So I think we're trying to do all the pieces and parts for an area that's pretty isolated.
Right.
And maybe a small area of smaller farms.
Yeah. They used to actually have a feed mill that was owned by TCCA as well. And my grandfather was on the board of directors at that time when they finally decided, well, we're not large enough, even with the amount of dairies in the county, to provide enough grain to get the prices low. So they ended up selling that to CHS. And so now they're, we get decent, fair grain prices. So
yeah, but this area is not really known for growing grain, so it's not really being railed in most of it.
It's definitely being railed in, and and our cost for our grain is definitely higher than people back in the Midwest or Idaho, anywhere, just because, well, you can't really, you go about 10 more miles and you're at the ocean.
Right.
So
right.
Our costs are definitely higher for any alfalfas, grains, anything like that we need to have trucked in.
But with the climate here, with the moisture that you guys get here on a very consistent basis, you're able to grow a lot of grasses.
Yeah, it's not unusual for guys that, especially the ones that do irrigate, to get 6, 7, 8 cuttings of grass. I mean, you try to cut it every 30 days, whether how tall it is or not. Some guys, cutting of grass might be that tall, but if you're irrigating it well and managing the land properly, applying manure when it needs it, and soil testing, it's not unheard of to get. I mean, just us off of our pastures, we probably rotate our cows through our pasture 7-8 times a year. We have guys that'll green chop grass. Boy, they're out there all the time.
So, Bryan, let's transition a little bit from the bigger picture of the area to what's going on your farm and the history of your family. You've been here, as I mentioned when we first started the podcast, for 5 generations your family has.
Yep.
What does that history look like?
Okay, so, and I might be off on the years just a little bit, but essentially my family moved to this area, and I want to say it was like 1915. This property that we're actually standing on right now came up for sale, and I think it was about 40 acres. They purchased it, and then a few years later, across the pavement here, there was another parcel that came for sale, and so they purchased that as well. 1942 is when they purchased this place and started farming here. They had my great-grandfather, Hans Leuthold, which he was huge into the dairy show world back in the day. The coolest pictures that I remember ever seeing of him was he won Grassman of the Year award back in, like, I want to say it was like JFK was president. So there's
the 60s.
So he actually has a picture of him shaking JFK's hand. And so that's kind of one of those pivotal moments in our family history right there, of a great achievement. And my plan is in the future is to kind of, I'll probably still have a few jerseys, but mainly kind of go back to the Holsteins just for the fact that the genetics on the Holstein herd has made it leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. And I think personally that it's surpassed the Jersey herd in the pounds of milk with the components to boot. So
right now, as some of the people listening can probably hear in the background, there's some construction noise.
Yes.
So you're in the middle of a pretty big project for your farm here, and really kind of a pivotal moment for your career, making a really big investment. You're going to be putting robots in here on your farm, expanding it out a little bit, building footprint, really stepping up automation, stepping up data collection and technology on your farm. So what gave you the confidence to be able to make that type of an investment in this region?
My biggest focus on this whole entire project is my children, like hands down. That's like number one in my life is my wife and my kids. So we are grinding and pushing. This year has been treacherous with the whole planning and the getting everything ready and construction and everything. And it's just been a whirlwind. Like I felt like it was yesterday. The kids just got out of school. Yesterday was the first day of school. And so it's just been it's been a blur. And I know that the end product here, once we get past the startup and everything is finally starting to smooth out and run smoother, I'll be able to spend more time doing those things that they love to do and supporting them in their dreams. So that's a big thing that, to me. The other thing is I love dairy farming. So we're at a kind of a pivotal moment in our farming community, I guess, where, we have immigration laws happening. We have, and let's face it, a lot of farm workers, not saying all, but I'm saying a lot of them are illegal immigrants, across the country. And so we have, it's harder to find help, and when you do find help and good help, you pay them an astronomical amount of money to keep them around and keep them happy. Not only that, but, milking in a double six parlor, and currently right now we're milking like 240 cows. So if we average 50 to 55 cows an hour, we're doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. But, it takes a long time to milk twice a day. Not only that, but, the good old manual labor of everything else takes a long time. And so to become more efficient, I guess that's like right behind where my first point of me spending more time with my kids and their sporting events. And so it's a big jump in efficiency. I'll be able to reduce labor. So that right there, just reducing labor, it's probably gonna take about 75% of the payment away from putting these in.
So what gave you the confidence to make such a large investment as a smaller farm?
Well, honestly, I'm not going anywhere. I have the confidence that if I have to do this on my own, then I will. I have the confidence that, I got great support too. So my grandparents, huge supporters. I couldn't have done it without them. We're making this jump so we can reduce labor. I mean, if we can consolidate a couple grains, like right now we use computer grain feeders. So we'll take our parlor grain and that computer grain and it'll turn into our robot grain.
Yep.
And that right there should save us some money. Labor costs will save us some money. More milk will make us more money.
Have you seen in this region, probably not going to be 3,000 or 4,000 cow dairy in this county, right?
We have one.
There's one. So you're not going to see multiple of those, most likely.
Most likely, no.
So is this a model that has really taken off in this region?
I think so. currently, let's see, 1, 2, 3, we have 6 producers out of 60,
right,
so 10% that have made the jump to robots. Clearly, yeah. If you're milking over 1,000 cows, it's probably not going to really make sense to throw robots in unless you have a large, especially like one of the farms that I met with over in Wisconsin. They had I think they were milking close to 3,000 cows, maybe 2,000 cows. Can't remember exact number, but it was a large. They had their own like visitor center, and I mean yes, it was. They do like hay rides and pumpkin patches and all sorts of like events year round there, and so. I mean, if you have the land to do that and where you can make some crop feed and it's just a different dynamic here where dairying is what we only do, So it's I mean, it makes sense on a small dairy, on a large dairy, unless you have some other kind of source of income to help subsidize that, then it's not really a feasible option, in my eyes.
So tell us a little bit about your system that you're running here. Obviously, you mentioned heavy grass. What's your diet look like today?
We make about 1,500 to 1,800 haylage bales a year.
Okay.
We farm on about 180 acres right now. So we bring in alfalfa, feeding about 2,000 pounds of alfalfa a day, which is a high milk count quality. So probably somewhere in the ballpark of 22% protein with an RFV value of about 190. And then on top of that, in the summertime, or just the months that aren't raining and freezing cold, where the cows are out on pasture, and so they'll get about 20 to 25% of their feed out in the pasture.
What are some of the other challenges that you face in this region that you think might be more unique to this area?
Rain.
So how do you deal with that if you're getting rain? What do you say, 250 days out of the year?
Yeah, honestly, the cows are. It's a milder climate here.
Yeah.
It doesn't get super hot in the summer. I bet you I think we've had 5 days, maybe at the most, that were in the mid 80s to 90s, and most of the time it's somewhere in the 60s, and I'm talking the nice time of year, right? 60s to 70. We might get a morning that's a little cooler down in the 40s, and then it bumps up to the 60s, 70s by the middle of the day. Now in the not so nice months, I mean, it's like someone turns the water faucet on and doesn't shut it off until springtime. It literally happened to us a few times where it started raining about the 15th of October, and there was a year about 3 or 4 years ago that it didn't turn off until about June 5th.
Oh, wow.
And then everybody's grass was overripe, so we didn't get a good first cutting, and then second cutting was behind, and it was
tough year. Yeah.
So one of the bigger challenges with the rain, especially in the springtime, because it's starting to warm up a little bit, but it's still wet and soggy out there, is to try and get that first cutting off. We try really hard, and generally we'll get a pocket in there of a week, maybe 10 days, somewhere in March or April, where it's warm enough to where we can make a batch of feed, but then we don't have the heat to help dry the grass out. Mm-hmm. So you end up putting it away a little wetter than you'd like. So you end up, just feeding that out a little quicker than, second or third cutting. But so that's probably one of the bigger challenges, the water.
And how do you deal with putting manure out on the fields when it's that wet?
So we don't
find windows to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, if we have like that 10-day window, or something, we'll put manure out.
But most of that's going on a perennial crop, really, right?
Right.
So that's kind of a difference between the Midwest, where
yes,
a lot of it's going out in corn stubble.
And I think it's from like it's about like November 4th through the beginning part of March, might have been the beginning part of February. They kind of like, unless you get a real nice window of weather, don't apply manure unless you absolutely have to. And that's all kind of controlled by the CAFO. You know, we have CAFO inspector that if it's rained the day before and it's nice for 2 or 3 days, he's driving around the county for sure and checking to see who's applying, or if there's any kind of a weather event. Like, I mean, every once in a while we'll get a big storm and it does flood here, you know, I mean, in certain parts. And so he'll be out in full force, just making sure no one's pumping manure when they're not supposed to. And, you know, I'm good with it.
Well, one of the other unique things with that, you're flat, you're really low ground, and I've noticed driving around, all of the manure storage is above ground storage here, which is kind of unique as well.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's, you know, like us personally, not a whole lot of guys in the county have this kind of access, but just right down the road, because there used to be like a big cluster of dairies right in this area where we were at. And so about, I don't know, probably 18-ish years ago or so, maybe less, 15 years, they built a manure digester that produces electricity off the methane. Mm-hmm. And so we're piped into it. And I think there's 1, 2, 3 other dairies that are piped into it as well.
Okay, it's all underground piping?
Underground piping. We've got a 6-inch line that goes from here probably about a half a mile, I'm guessing, underground. And then every 3 days-ish, we pump and empty our underground tank.
Okay.
And it goes over there, it gets processed, and then depending on how many gallons, how many cows you have, they try to ship you back a little bit more than you're giving them, because they do bring in some outside stuff here and there. Used to be really bad when they first started up. They used to bring in different waste from slaughterhouses and stuff, and so the smell coming off of that, boy, it was bad. But they made the mistake one year of when they first started it up. Someone had a bunch of grass silage that went bad, and they thought they could digest it, and it digested it, but it left quite a bit in the tank too, and so it stayed there for a few years, and they actually shut the digester down last summer for a bit,
just to clean it out.
Yeah, and they had to cut a big hole in the wall and drive skid loaders in it and push it out, and then had to basically just built a hole, and they shove it out into that hole, and then an excavator would sit in there scooping this sandy, silty mess into some trucks, and they'd haul it out into the fields as solids. But it's been really good being part of that digester. They have a huge above ground storage facility, and then every dairy that's connected to it has a decent storage facility too. So it helps out with, if you got a guy that's milking 400 cows and he's got 600 acres, well, they tend to take more manure. And I mean, we still take more than our share, and there's other guys in the county that need more manure for their grounds. So there's a couple companies here and businesses in town that actually will haul manure to them.
Well, Bryan, thank you so much for sharing with me today your operation and the uniqueness of this region. I think it's a very interesting place to farm, and enjoyed hearing your story and being able to share that with our audience. So.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you once again for listening to another episode of the AgCulture Podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this area of the country called Tillamook Valley. Again, I really enjoyed my trip to this area and seeing the uniqueness of the area and how farmers have adapted to be able to continue to farm for generations in an environmentally fragile area, as well as to see a thriving creamery business. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody you know. That's how we grow our audience here at the AgCulture Podcast. Also, if you'd be so kind as to subscribe if you're not a subscriber, leave a rating and review. We really appreciate that as well. So until next week, I'm Paul Windemuller. Thanks once again for listening to the AgCulture Podcast.